Hello Orchid friends, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time watching my video, my channel is all about orchids. From what orchids I have, how I grow them, my thoughts on certain orchid topics, to what orchids in my collection are blooming, etc. So if you want to follow along my orchid hobby adventure, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification. In mid-September this year, I went on a 2.5 weeks vacation in Taiwan. I went back to Taipei to visit some family and friends. And every time I go back, I always make a point to visit the biggest floral market in Taipei, and that is the Jianguo flower market. This market is located right next to Da'an Forest Park. And it's also very easy to get to because it's right by the Da'an subway station within, I think, 5 to 10 minute walking distance. And it's also very close to one of the most famous street for local food, and it's called Yongkang Street. And there is also a jade market right after the floral market. And during the weekday, where the market is actually parking space underneath freeways. But on the weekends, it turned into a flower market that many people visit all the time. This year, a friend of mine from the US also came with me to Taiwan, and she also went to the flower market with me. And one of the highlights for us was that we were able to meet Nancy from Joseph Wu Orchids. Nancy is the lady of the business, the nursery, and they have a daughter named Tina. And at the time, we were able to visit with Tina and Nancy. They were super friendly, and in fact, I'm no stranger to Joseph Wu Orchids. Remember the 5 Phalaenopsis mini marks that I have in my collection? I got them from Joseph Wu's Orchid. And I also have 3 Phalaenopsis Philadelphia. It's a cross between Schilleriana and Stuartiana. They are also from this particular orchid nursery. As you can see here, they are very specialized in Phalaenopsis species and primary hybrids. And of course, they also have many other types of orchids in their orchid nursery as well. But how I learned about this orchid nursery is through their high quality, absolutely amazing Phalaenopsis species collections. Joseph Wu Orchids have been in this business, been in this orchid space for many years. If I remember correctly, I think it was over 30 years. And they come to the US quite a few times a year for orchid shows. And if you want to check them out, I know they definitely go to the one in Miami. I think it's called Miami, and then the one in Redland. And there's also another orchid show that they go to regularly every year. I think it's the one in Huntington. So definitely check them out. I would include the link to their orchid Facebook page in the description down below. And definitely contact them if you feel that there is anything that you're looking for that you can't get them in the US. For example, mini marks. They should be able to give you directions on how to obtain one, or when they visit the US, they could probably take your pre-order and then just send them to you, even if you're not physically going to the orchid show. I think it was a Saturday morning that we went to this flower market, and Joseph Wu Orchid is always located at the vendor number or spot number 408. So if you ever visit this flower market, make sure you check out vendor 408 or spot 408. That's where they will go. That's where they'll be. So again, it was Saturday morning. It was very busy. There were many customers at their booth, but you know, Nancy was very friendly. She was telling me about a lot of her orchids, and she even took out her phone to show me a lot of the photos of some of the gorgeous, rare orchids from her nursery. I even joked about I even joked with my friends after we had left the market that we should have just gotten a couple cups of coffee and then took Nancy's phone and sit at the back of the booth and enjoy all the beautiful orchid flower photos. And their daughter Tina is a lovely girl. She definitely kept my friend company while I was busy taking pictures, snapping away pictures, and taking videos. So thank you, Tina, for keeping my friend company. And as you can see here, they have just a lot of gorgeous orchids, species or primary hybrids, you name it, right? I remember when last year I visited their booth. They were super busy. I didn't talk to them, but I was looking at some of their purple Tetraspis C1, and then they also have their white, pure white Tetraspis C1, even in the middle of the flower where the lip is. Typically it's like light purple or pink. Its entire flower is white, which is amazing. And also they have very, very high quality Luda Maniana. Super big, super waxy. But I also want to tell you about a big discovery, and that is their Psychopsis. In the next picture, you're going to be able to see why their Psychopsis are so special. Simply put, you see how short the flower spike is? This is the new invention from their nursery. Short spike, and it already can bloom big flowers. And in the next photo, you're also going to be able to see just how short the spike is, and it's already producing a huge pluric Psychopsis flower. I wish I could simply just pack a couple plants in my suitcase and bring them back to the US, but I know it's not possible, it's not allowed, so I can only wish. But there's always pre-order when they come to the US for orchid shows, don't forget. Now, let's take a look at some footage from last year, and I will tell you the story. These were the orchids I purchased last year when I was visiting Taipei. I obviously left them with my family because I couldn't physically take them back with me, even though I really, really wish that I could. And the good news is they're still both alive, and they are doing quite okay. My family didn't kill these orchids, and that's the surprising thing, because they really don't know how to take good care of orchid. They don't know about orchid growing, but they did follow one rule, and I only told them one rule, and that is, do not overwater. Only water them when the media is completely dry and crispy. And that's all I told them. And they believe they keep these two orchids on the windowsill, but outside of the window instead of inside. So yeah, obviously they always have very good ventilation, and they're always somewhat slightly underwater, which is good. Because when orchids are dehydrated, it's easy to hydrate them. But if they're overhydrated, or if they are overwatered, their roots rot, then it's harder for people who don't know how to take good care of orchid to bring them back to perfect health. These two orchids were both fragrant, and the one that I was holding at the moment in the video here had much stronger fragrance than the one on the right. But we're gonna take a look at the one on the right first, because magically, after the flower had died off, they cut off the flower spike. This particular orchid produced another 2 flower spikes this year and bloomed, believe it or not, while being underwatered and no fertilizer, because my family does not have any orchid fertilizers around at all. And that's the surprising thing. So, you know, orchids do thrive with neglect to a certain extent. And coming up, we're going to take a look at a video clip of the second orchid. You see how the bottom leaves are slightly yellowed and a little bit wrinkled because it is slightly underwatered, but this is actually much better than being overwatered. And as you can see, it's still okay. It's still producing a flower spike. I don't know if I will call this orchid a little stressed because it's underwater, because the newer leaves are still looking okay. But I think that just judging by the color of the leaves, this orchid can use a little bit of fertilizer. But anyway, back to this orchid's overall well-being. I think it's doing fine. And of course, this orchid is grown outside on the windowsill, actually outside of the window. Taiwan does have higher humidity, so maybe that's why that this orchid is underwater, but is still doing okay and is still spiking and producing buds. By the way, one of the things my mom asked me about this orchid is when would it bloom? And I said one of the tricks that I use to guess or to determine when potentially orchids would bloom is if you look at the bud, if they start to turn pointing downward, usually within about a week or so, they'll open. So that's just one of the things that I look at to see if orchids are going to bloom pretty soon. And the funny thing is, surely enough, a week after I came back, my family sent me a couple photos of this particular orchid, and here it is. The blooms. Just as I remembered, it's very cute and the color is also very warm and welcoming. And the best part is it's fragrant. It's very fragrant in the morning, according to my mom and my brother. And it's still working on more buds, so in the near future, I'm sure I'll be getting a photo of this orchid's full bloom. For the remainder of this video would be all the video footages and photos that I've taken for many of the orchid vendors at the flower market. With permission, of course. I always ask before I take photos or videos of anyone's orchid at this particular flower market. Most vendors would let you take photos and videos, no problem. There are a couple who would have signed up to tell you no photos, no video, and you really have to respect that because that's their flower, that's their hard work, and sometimes it's just because they're there to do business, and if you are taking videos, sometimes because each space is not very big, so if you're just standing there, sometimes it's just harder for them to be able to provide good customer service to their patron. So with permissions, I was able to take all these footage and photos to share with you just so that you can kind of see if you go to a flower market in Taipei, especially this one, Jianguo Flower Market, you're going to be able to see so many different kinds of orchid on one single trip. Yes, you have to make a few stops at different vendors, different parking spaces, but you're going to see so many different kinds of orchid on the same day. I think this is probably better than visiting a botanical garden, because a lot of the times when I go to a botanical garden, yes, I see some orchids and some nice blooms, but never as many kinds of orchid, as many different varieties of blooming orchid at one single time on a single given day. And what always amazes me is their prices. Yes, some orchids are more expensive than others, but if you compare the prices over there with the price that we're paying in the US, I think it has to do with the currency exchange. It just feels that orchids over there are much reasonably priced. And since I love orchids so much, a lot of my friends are recommending me that I should retire back in Taiwan, so that way I can grow as many orchids as I want and have as many varieties as I want for reasonable prices. What do you think? I guess we'll find out in about 30 years. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!